I don't care what anyone else said, and I'm not saying this just because as a loony fan, but I'm just saying that this chapter just screamed awesomeness. The only downside was the ending, which hinting towards a very deep despair. But I have nothing, and I feel like people have nothing to really complain about in this chapter. The only thing they can complain about is the fact that we saw some fights off screen, but hey, we already saw them, so of course we're gonna do. If they ever decide to animate it, I wouldn't mind if they animated the fight, but I don't think they will. Yes, I am talking about Fairy Tail, chapter 521, and yes, it is me, the Angry Anime Fantasy Spare Reviewer. First of all, we have a very unusual not cover page. Gray and Lucy talking to each other like friends and almost out on a date. You gotta say that is actually quite an unusual cover page. Gotta say I like that. Magnolia is back from where they were, back after Irene killed herself. And so the mages of Fairytale got their spirits back as they now charges in against the enemy. As Luxas wields his deceased grandfather, what we can presume, his body does no longer look short white, and he looks more like he has this than this. However, he takes his grandfather in his arms and says, "I will take you there, to the guild." I mean, I know TV Troops no longer wants to update Fairytale, but I gotta say, they have to admit that is quite a heartwarming line. "I will take you there, to our guild, to our home." Elsewhere, Mira Jane finally knocks out Jacob, who have spent this entire fight shutting his eyes. While I'm a bit disappointed that it took so long for Mira Jane to do that, unfortunately Mira Jane is one of the Fairy Tail victims of Wolf effect, so of course, I mean, there is always supposed to be one or three victims of that one. One who is established very big as being strong, yet has to lose to a strong one in order to realize just how weak that character, in order to know how strong that other guy is. After all, one of my favorite series, One Piece, I already have a scapegoat. In this instance, Mira Jane was one, but she did knock him out. And I think the only reason why she did that is because, as she says, his quirkiness of always shutting his eyes helped her. Elsewhere, finally, the other Strauss siblings, Elfman and Lysana, have beaten Aegil, which is actually a surprise, but hey, they did it. We don't really care so much about those two, but at least they did it. And the one who stops them from doing anything more is none other than Aegil's grandfather, whose name, Jagiel, stops him. And he instead says that, and surprisingly, the old man turns out to be quite a wise man. I thought he was just simply one who would, encourage this war, but in the end says this, now this war has made people lose everything important. And wars lead to the same results. So instead, they need to surrender, because as Lysana says, they have won war, and that made them blind to the fact that, or maybe they just didn't care. I think it's both of those. That even the countries they have defeated have lost things. So Yajil just says to please spare my grandson, but Fairy Tail, they will never ever kill an enemy, at least not willingly. So, and surprisingly, as soon as, even though Aegil do not want to hear to be begged by someone else's life, I mean, I gotta say Aegil is the more likable one of them, of the family. Not because he's just the one who always do that, but also because he is the one who admit you have to surrender and you have to stop. But it's also pretty strange that as soon as Aegil hears that Lysana and Elfman are siblings, he actually reacted that you two are siblings, and then he says, you're not alike, which actually is true. The only thing that they are alike is in the hair color, at least in the, or maybe eye color too. At least in the anime, all of the Strauss siblings have silver hair. But finally, Lucy has also switched back to her clothes, still a little bit that skimpy outfit I wasn't so much a fan of. And Brandish have also been close to the place. And Brandish has actually shrinking Dimara, who still is are very afraid of Natsu, despite Natsu having been snapped out of it, as you saw. So Brandish decides just to, screw this, I'm out of here. I don't want to become an enemy, but I don't become an ally. As Lucia says, see you later, she silently smiles at that. Brandish silently smiles at that comment. In the end, she was a tsundere, for all we know, but she was quite a sexy dress. And also, Porcelain and Evergreen have taken Juvia and also Charlie with them are also near the end place. But Grey is nowhere to be seen. So, but Natsu have a pretty good idea what it is. But before that, we cannot forget one thing. Eileen is dead, and most of the Springham 12 have lost their fighting spirit and have lost. Technically, there are only 3 people. I mean, most of the Springham 12 seem to have lost their fighting spirits. Of course, we cannot forget that Alacrade was also defeated, but I have still a little bit feeling he will come back to the story. And also Invel, he was knocked out by Grey, but I do wonder, is he also down for the count? But that don't matter, because they all hear a sound. We don't know what that sound is, but it's a terrifying sound, I guess. As they look up in the cathedral, they see none other than August, yes. So if we speak logically, all of the Springham 12 are now defeated. The only one that stands in their way is the strongest Springham ever. As he says to everyone to devote their souls and bodies to their majesty, Brandish silently whispers, when you provoke anger in August, you can never ever win. As he says he's a child of the majesty, I think he has meant that as a loyal servant of Alvarez. I will exterminate everyone. And he intends to destroy this entire city along with his allies. Guess the poor August have finally had a villainous breakdown. But then, maybe a hope appears. And who else but Gildarts again. Oh, Gildarts, you have such cool entrances. He made an entrance when they started in the war with a badass line, I'm hungry as hell, step aside Brad, I'm taking back the guild. That was badass. And now he appears from the sky again. Punches August's staff, because August actually blocks it. However, he destroys the church, and for the first time ever, well, not counting the time Mest brainwashed Brandish, but for the first time ever, August's face actually changes a little bit to surprise, which meant that he did not expect Gildarts to be that strong. Of course, we should not underestimate August, but we'll get to that in a later. As Gildarts destroy the church, August begins to fight Gildarts. The strongest versus the strongest. Who will win? Well, given despair and given to the fact what people always say about fairy tale, Gildarts will win. However, I think the win is not exactly gonna be what we're hoping to be. Think about it. Now the strongest versus the strongest, and that is always a little bit dangerous too, because it means that how will the strongest defeat the strongest? I mean, I actually suspected Gildarts to die and then Kana to come in and inherit his magic power and then defeat him. But I know Fairy Tail is not that type of manga, so that's impossible. And also, people will just not like that situation. But hey, however the outcome of August and Gildarts fight, I know people are not gonna like it. Maybe I will like it, but I'll get to that when it happens. And Natsu begins to run to Seraph's place together with Lucy, because he knows where Grey is. And sure enough, he has reached Seraph's place. With a battered body, he looks at Seraph, who sits in the exact same position Grey usually sits. He says he expected Jalal or Laxus to be the first one to reach him, but he's a bit disappointed. All that Grey can do is smile that despite his wounded body, he is now facing off against Seraph. Next chapter is also promising 2 chapters, which probably means that next week's chapter is gonna be all about despair. Or probably the second chapter is gonna be all about despair. But the next chapter is called Grey's Triumph Card. So that means he actually do have a Triumph card. You cannot forget that before the war started he said, I also have a card. So that probably means he's now gonna use it. All in all though, it was just a chapter full with awesome moments. But that ending, that was the only thing that made me worry. Mostly because, I don't know why, I just got a death flag moment on Grey. And this is Fairytale, they never kill off the main characters. And I certainly hope he will not do it again. I mean, okay, I admit, if Gildart's fall against August, I wouldn't mind that. Of course, if he survives, that's also fine. It's just for story purposes, you know. I just don't... But, as I said in last time, is Natsu now free from the END connection to Seraph? And is END gone forever? Because what I meant to say is this it? If Grey now fights Seraph and kills him, which he probably won't, but let's just say that, will Natsu also die? Also, will Grey now fight as a Fairytale member or a guy is consumed by vengeance? Because I didn't like when he was consumed by vengeance, just like Sasuke. So, I don't know, that scene just made me wonder. But we'll see, won't we? Either way, we're promising 2 chapters next week. And also, we got some updated information also about the new Fairytale film, Dragon's Soul or something. Don't know, don't know, I think they said they would give it, I think they're gonna get that next week, so we'll see. Don't know if I'll do an update about it, but I'm all for 2 chapters, because after all, people criticize Hiro Mashima-san. They say he's a bad writer and blah 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 blah. But there's one thing he can do that almost no other author can do, and that is stamina. He doesn't go on breaks. He doesn't surrender, at least not yet. But and he doesn't fall to the pressure, at least not yet. But what we know is that when he can bring 2 chapters in a row, there's almost no other artist that is famous, at least, that can do that. Well, maybe Nanatsu no Taizai once did that, but they only did that one time. So enough about that. Give me your thoughts if you have any.